Is your husband wanting to buy a new sports car? Is he suddenly going to the gym? Is he wearing slit jeans? Whatever it is, you might be wondering to yourself, is it a midlife crisis? Is it something else? Well, stick around because what you're going to hear right now might just surprise you. Now, usually at some point between the ages of 40 and 60, men often find themselves questioning their choices in life. They're questioning their relationships, they're questioning their careers, they're questioning their hobbies. It's almost like they're hitting that pause button going, what's this all about? What gives my life meaning now? Why have I been doing all these things that haven't been bringing me joy? And it can create a lot of confusion within the family environment. And yes, it can create a huge amount of chaos as well. Now, we'll cover the biggest midlife crisis signs in a second. But did you know that midlife crisis often has a surprising financial impact? I'm going to break that down now. Now, imagine you come home for a second and you see a bright red Mustang in the driveway, and you see your husband just grinning from ear to ear, and you're thinking to yourself, what's going on here? What happened? I mean, do we have the money for this? How much did this cost? And so on. Now, this is a real life story of one of my clients who had to deal with this exact issue. And let's just say she wasn't exactly the happiest camper when she saw that car in the driveway. And fair enough, because the reality is that he didn't actually discuss that with her. Not to say that he has to run everything past her. With major expenses, it's very important that those are communicated between the two parties. And sensible decisions are often made. But the thing is that when a guy is often going through a midlife crisis, they're often reflecting back on aspects of their life, and they end up wanting to do things that are going to inflate their ego and make themselves feel more significant, maybe living off a past, desire or dream or whatever. And so their emotions are then justifying a purchase. If you think about it for a second as well, have you been in a moment in your life ever, and I know there will be, where you might have wanted to buy something and you may not necessarily have the money for it, but your emotions are so high, you're so caught up and so connected to the feelings and the emotions of actually purchasing that thing and assuming that there's going to be these wonderful emotions associated with that. And so you go ahead and you do it, even if you haven't necessarily got the money. And then after the fact, you're going, oh, geez, why did I do that? What was I thinking? Why did I want that bag? Why do I want those sunglasses or that car, whatever it may be? And this is often what happens when men go through a midlife crisis. So it's always important to be aware that sometimes if there are decisions that are being made and having an adverse effect on the financial side of your lives, there's a very good chance he's probably going to be going through a midlife crisis at the moment. Now, the second sign is a really, really important one. Have you noticed that your husband might be wanting to go off to the gym all the time and get really into his workouts and changing his diet completely and wanting to get that, six-pack beach body and so on? Have you been observing that? Because if that's been occurring, or you might be finding he's trying to get involved in some adrenaline sports or other things because he feels like time might be running out. Because as I said, when a guy gets to about 40, it's amazing how much their mind shifts if they haven't had the opportunities and the chances to be able to do some of the things that they wanted to do when they were younger. Maybe because they were raising a family, maybe they were just immersing themselves in their work and trying to make lots of money and so on. And it didn't end up being as fulfilling as they thought it might be. Whatever the reason is at a deeper level, if you're observing that there are suddenly some big changes in terms of, wanting to make changes on a physical level and so on, you might be observing a person who's going through a midlife crisis in that situation. If all of that is happening and it's costing your marriage, if it's costing the time that he's spending with the family and the connection that he's building with you and so on, then I think that's where the balance is off. And if you're noticing that the balance is off, that's when we're talking about the person is going through probably a midlife crisis at that moment in time. There's nothing wrong with someone wanting to do those things because they're all good. I think we should all grow and get better and improve and heal and all of that good stuff. But if you're finding it's coming at a cost of other things, that's what we have to be really, really mindful of. Now, the third sign is around the shifting in relationship dynamics. Now, often, if there are these other behaviors that have been going on that I've mentioned previously, If those things are occurring, as well as there is a loss of connection, there is a loss of intimacy, there is a loss of real in-depth communication between the two of you. He might seem distant. He might not be interested in sort of spending much time with you. Before, you guys may have been cuddling on the couch and watching TV and so on, and now he's just completely immersed in going to the gym all the time, or engaging in other activities like playing golf, whatever it is, at the expense of the time with you. Then there is potentially a very good chance that he is going through that midlife crisis. Now, I think looking at all of these, we have to understand what are the deeper drivers behind these. And I'm going to explain those to you in a second. I really want you to pay attention to number two in particular, I'm going to explain shortly. The more you do that, the more you understand this, it can create a different perspective for you and be able to help you to navigate your way through this extremely difficult time. Now, the first driver is what we call the blueprint versus reality. See, I've always said that for a lot of guys, when they're going through their 20s and 30s, they've got this image in their head about what it is that they want to achieve, what they want to accomplish, and so on. I'm speaking generally here. Obviously, there are some exceptions. A lot of the time, guys have this desire to maybe make a certain amount of money by the age of 30, or maybe be in a particular career, or do a certain amount of study, or have kids, get married by a certain age, and so on. Or maybe they want to have all of that only when they've got the right amount of finances in the bank, and so on. Whatever it is, they have a blueprint in their head. However, often when guys get to about 40, they start to look at that and go, does my reality match up with what I expected in my head? And if there is a discrepancy there, if there's a big delta, then that can often create huge turmoil on the inside. Not only that, but people start to question their mortality. They're thinking to themselves, geez, I'm 40% of the way in and I haven't been able to achieve some of the things I wanted to achieve. And, I've spent all this time just focusing on work and, raising the kids and all of that stuff. And whilst those things have been enjoyable, I feel that part of me hasn't really been able to do the things I want to do. And so maybe the kids are a little bit older now. Maybe, work has gotten a little bit monotonous and a little bit boring. And at that point, it's like, okay, I want to make some changes. I want to start doing some things. I want to start, shifting my physical body. I want to, achieve that particular career that I wanted to achieve, or do all of these things that they felt like they missed out on. And it's really important for you to understand this. I'm not saying this as an excuse, because if he's going through some of these times and it's affecting you, I know the pain you're going through. But if you don't understand where that person is at, if you can't really empathize with their mindset, you're never going to be able to help them and also help yourself be able to navigate your way through a really, really difficult time. Because I know at these moments, when people get into this difficult moment where there might be a midlife crisis, a lot of the time the ladies feel isolated, they feel alone, they feel like they're not getting the time and the attention that they want. And because if the kids are, say, getting older, this represents an opportunity to be able to, be able to build this beautiful bond and go traveling and do all these wonderful things once you become empty nesters. But then often when that empty nest time comes, that's often when they deal with the midlife crisis issue in and of itself. So it becomes very, very challenging to deal with. But if you can understand where a man is at in those moments, it can really help you to be able to communicate, to have some open dialogue and so on. Now, the second really important driver here is, what are his needs? And in particular, when a guy is often going through a midlife crisis, there is this need to feel significant and to feel special and to feel unique. Now, that may be that he wants to climb up to the top of a corporate ladder. That may be that he's been, hasn't had the body that he wanted over a period of time. Now he really wants to try and get, that six pack, get those bulging biceps or whatever, and it can make him feel superior. And unfortunately, sometimes that might be he wants the attention of other women and so on. I'm just going to be really flat out honest there. There are some men who go through that process and that's what they secretly want, because it makes them feel significant at the deepest level. It's not about just, I just want to get the attention of someone. It's about, at the deepest level, I'm driven by this need to feel significant and superior. Not only that, it might be if they want to go out and buy that car. By driving that fancy car, it makes them feel like they are the man and so on. So understanding the core drivers there is extremely important because a lot of men in these situations over time have felt insignificant, inadequate, not good enough, unworthy. And when someone has got that level of wound opened up, then what they're going to try and do is use the external stuff to try and fill up that gaping wound on the inside. Problem is, it's never enough. And that is going to be on them to try and figure that out, to eventually work out that I can go off and, buy the car, I can go off and get the gym, do the gym workouts and all of that stuff, but it's never really going to properly fill that void on the inside. And the third driver can often be the connection with their own selfish nature. Sometimes individuals, maybe in the early stages of their life, around sort of between in their 20s and 30s, they probably just did a whole bunch of things because they wanted to people please. And what happens is they probably suppressed a whole heap of their desires for a period of time, maybe if it was during, having kids and so on. And then what's ended up happening is it's suppressed and suppressed and suppressed, and eventually it gets to a point where it just snaps. And they go, nah, I just want to start doing some of the things that I want to be doing. I don't care about anyone. I don't want to know about it. I just want to go off and do what I want, when I want, how I want, and that's it. And it becomes very, very selfish in nature. Now, what I want to do shortly is I want to explain to you some coping strategies that you can use to handle this. But before I do that, you should remember that going through a midlife crisis can be challenging. A lot of relationships do experience huge disconnects when a guy is going through his midlife crisis and is finding himself doing some of the things that we've talked about so far in this video. And I know how challenging it can be, but I want you to remember that in situations like this, there is a silver lining. And the silver lining is that there is a huge opportunity for growth individually and collectively. There's an opportunity for this relationship to go to a whole different level. Because let's face it, individuals go through different stages in their lives. What you want in your 20s might be different than what you want in your 30s and 40s and 50s and so on. People change, people evolve, people shift, people change their perspectives on things. But if you have a relationship that's actually built on really solid foundations, that can help you navigate through these challenges. And that's what a great relationship does. A great relationship is able to use these experiences, use these challenges to strengthen the bond between the two of them and go to that next level. And that sometimes means that we have to individually make those changes. Sometimes it means that we have to collectively make those changes. And so with that in mind, I'm going to explain to you a few key coping strategies that you can utilize right now. Now, the first coping strategy is enabling open communication between the two of you. You've got to have some open dialogue. Rather than judging him and being like, why did you buy that car? What were you thinking? You might say something like, hun, that's a beautiful car. I think it's absolutely incredible. I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful. So you let him enjoy the moment. And you might say to him a little bit later on, I'm really stoked that you actually bought something for yourself. I know you've been so selfless over the years or whatever it may be. But I just wanted to ask, have you kind of thought about the financial piece, and are we in an okay position to be able to do those sort of things? And you may know what the financial position is, and you may think to yourself, geez, I don't know if we can. But what you're doing is you're empowering him to speak openly and honestly about this situation. And then you can sort of start to ask a few more questions about it. I say, oh, how much is it per month? And okay, we covered. Do we need to do anything else? Do I need to work more hours or whatever it is just to support us in that situation? We're okay on that front. And just understand where he's at. The more you go at him in terms of in a judgmental and an aggressive way, the more he's going to resist it, the more he's going to get frustrated. Because remember, he's emotionally connected with that particular item. So you need to make sure that you're at least understanding his world to start with. And if you can take a more of a, we call curious and non-judgmental approach to the communication, ask questions, listen, use language like, okay, hun, so if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is this, what you're saying, is that right? Am I understanding that correctly? Use communication like that, where you're actually sincerely trying to understand this point of view. The more you do that, the more he's actually going to respond in a much better way rather than going off at you or criticizing you or getting annoyed at you or whatever it is. You need to try and keep that safe environment open for that communication. Secondly, Engage in some shared activities. Depending on how dire your relationship is right now, if it's actually in a good place, if it's actually just progressing, but you're seeing the signs of a midlife crisis, if he's going to the gym, maybe you want to join him. Maybe you want to see if you can engage in some classes with him or whatever. If you're going through a tough time in that relationship, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to do the things that he's after. But that doesn't mean you can't ask. You might say, oh, I'd love to come and join you at the gym. Or you might just say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what you've been doing at the gym? I'm thinking about doing it myself, and I'm just curious as to the sort of things that you get up to. Does weights, are they more beneficial, or is it cardio, or are you having to change your diet in order to sort of shift some of these things in your body? Hey, I'm so proud of the things that you're doing. It's so awesome to see. Engaging in that sort of dialogue can really help you to once again build a deeper connection between the two of you. And then thirdly, it's more about your own internal growth. And it's asking yourself, whenever you're engaging in dialogue with him, this important question, this one important question in every scenario: am I coming from a place of love, or am I coming from a place of fear? If your answer is fear, then you know that the approach you're taking is not serving you enough for your highest good. And it's probably not going to get you the outcome that you're looking for. If it is love, if it genuinely is from love, and sometimes that might be you have to be selfless. It might be that at this moment in time, that is what he is needing. And if that's the case, then you need to come from that loving place. A lot of people talk about relationships being 50-50, it's got to be equal. It's actually not. In order for a relationship to thrive, you have to be willing to go 100 and expect nothing back. And that's hard, and I appreciate that. That's why selection is so key. Because if you end up with someone who's not actually a good fit for you, and you're giving and you're giving and you're giving and all of that stuff all the time, and that person is not someone who's really capable of reciprocating on any level, then you're going to burn yourself out, you're going to be exhausted. It's not going to serve you for your highest good. So we do need to set some boundaries. I'm not just suggesting that you just give all the time. But for a truly wonderful relationship, the one thing they always say is, I love my partner so much, I just love giving. I'm so full of love that I just love giving to that particular person with no expectation of anything in return. Because when I give, that feeling is guaranteed. That's why it's so important to come from a place of just authenticity and love. And always ask yourself when it comes to any of these difficult times, am I coming from a place of love, or am I coming from a place of fear? So I hope all of this makes sense around midlife crises. I know it can be really, really challenging, but with the right coping strategies, and with the right level of understanding and empathy for the other person, you'll have the ability to be able to navigate your way through these challenges and be able to move forward and hopefully take this relationship to a different level. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked this video, make sure you hit that like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Let me know if you've got any comments or questions or takeaways, or even if you just want to share your situation below. I'd love to hear your story, and I'll make sure to respond to you and provide you with whatever advice that I possibly can relating to your situation. Now, one of the key things in this situation is understanding the male mind. Male psychology is very, very different. And it's extremely important to understand those differences so that you can communicate with your husband in the best possible way. So if you're in that position, and what I encourage you to do is click on this video below where I talk about the 4 feminine traits that men find wildly attractive. Click on that video, watch these 4 traits in its entirety, and it'll help you to gain a different perspective on your husband or partner. Thank you so much. God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next video.